Today we're going to be talking about quotation marks. First off, we need to know what quotation marks are. Quotation marks are punctuation marks that are used to show someone's exact words when we're writing. Quotation marks also help us to know when someone is speaking. What do quotation marks look like? Quotation marks look very similar to commas. One big difference is they come in pairs. So our first set of quotation marks look like two commas that have been pushed together and flipped upside down. They also look very similar to the number 66. These are our beginning quotation marks, and these always go at the beginning of any dialogue in our story. The second set of quotation marks goes at the end of our dialogue. They also look like two commas pushed together, or the number 99. When do we use quotation marks? We use quotation marks whenever we want to write exactly what someone is saying. You can find quotation marks used in lots of places. You can find them in fiction and nonfiction books. You can find them in newspapers. You can even find them in magazine articles. Take a minute to find a book, or a magazine, or a newspaper. See if you can find where they've used quotation marks in their writing. How do we use quotation marks correctly? Remember, quotation marks are used so that the reader understands exactly what is being said by the characters in the story. In our example below, Sarah said, "I hope we can go outside today." Sarah is our character, and what is being said is, "I hope we can go outside today." The portion underlined in blue is what needs to go inside the quotation marks. Remember, there are two sets of quotation marks that we need to add. Our first set of quotation marks go at the beginning of the dialogue. In this example, I is the first thing that Sarah says, so the quotation marks need to go in front of the word I. We also need quotation marks at the end of the dialogue. In this example, today is the last word that Sarah says, so our quotation marks go after the word today. There are a few other things that we need to think about when using quotation marks and writing dialogue. We need to make sure that whatever sentence is being said by our characters has an ending mark. In this example, we use a period at the end of the sentence, "I hope we can go outside today." Another punctuation mark we need is a comma. We always have a comma to separate who is speaking and what is being said. In this example, Sarah said is who is speaking, and "I hope we can go outside today" is what is being said. So the comma needs to go in between the two. Here's another example of a sentence that needs quotation marks. In this example, the person speaking, Jack, comes last, and what's being said, "I think it might rain today," comes first. We still need to add both sets of quotation marks and check our punctuation. So, just as we did in the other example, we need a set of quotation marks at the beginning of what is being said. In this example, I is the first word that Jack speaks, so our quotation marks go in front of the word I. The last thing that Jack says is today, so our quotation marks go at the end of the sentence as well behind today. This lets the reader know that just this portion of the sentence is what Jack is actually saying. We have our period at the end of our sentence, so we're good there, but there's one thing that we can't forget. We need our comma between what is being said and who is speaking. In this case, today and said is where that is, and we need to put our comma in the middle. Sometimes in our writing, we need to use different types of punctuation depending on what is being said. In the example seen here, "Can you believe it's my birthday already?" asked Molly. Molly is asking a question, and we won't be able to use the comma or period that we've used in the previous examples. Our quotation marks stay the same. We still need a set of quotation marks at the beginning of what is being said and at the end of what is being said. But in this case, since Molly is asking a question, we need to make sure that we have a question mark at the end of her sentence. Notice that I did not change the period at the very end of the sentence after the word Molly. We still need an ending mark to show that this is the end of the completed sentence. Here's a quick review. We always need quotation marks at the beginning and the end of the sentence, here and here. We also need to remember that who is speaking can come at the end and not just at the beginning. We also need to remember to use our ending marks, always at the end of our sentence, and either an exclamation point, period, question mark, or a comma in between what is being spoken, and who is speaking. Okay, now it's time to practice. See if you can tell where our quotation marks and punctuation needs to go. Also check for capital letters. Our first sentence, Emma said we can always go to the pool. Where should the quotation marks be? You're right. They should go at the beginning of what's being said and at the end. What about in our second example? Happy birthday, shouted the class. Where should those quotation marks go? Right again. Our quotation marks need to go at the beginning of what is being said and at the end. Now, let's go back and look for anything else that we need to add. In our first example, Emma said we can always go to the pool. What needs to be changed, or what should we add? You're right. Our W needs to be a capital because it's the beginning of a sentence. We also need an ending mark at the end of our sentence. And we need a comma between what's being said and who is speaking. Same question for the next sentence. Happy birthday, shouted the class. What else do we need to add? You're right. You need an exclamation point after happy birthday. The exclamation point needs to go inside of the quotation marks. Okay, review time. What have we learned so far? We've learned that quotation marks are punctuation marks that show when someone is speaking or what they've said. Quotation marks always come in pairs, and we always put quotation marks at the beginning of what is being said and at the end. There are other punctuation marks that we have to think of when we're using quotation marks. Sometimes we need a comma between who is talking and what is being said. Sometimes we need to add question marks or exclamation marks depending on what is being said, but we always need an ending mark at the end of our sentence.